When my grandson Tyler had me declared legally insane to steal my $73 million inheritance, I played the confused grandmother perfectly. 3 days later, when he was begging for my life while international killers held guns to his head, he finally understood what 40 years of teaching forensic family law investigation had taught me about people. But let me take you back 6 months, to the moment I discovered that my sweet, loving grandson wasn't just trying to control my inheritance through conservatorship. He was part of an international murder-for-profit ring that had killed dozens of elderly people across 4 countries. And they had no idea that their next target had spent 4 decades teaching future prosecutors exactly how to catch people like them. I should have known something was wrong when Tyler started visiting every week, asking about my legal protection needs. My grandson had barely spoken to me since his parents died in that car accident 5 years ago. 24 years old, struggling with grief, building walls around his heart the way young people do when loss hits too early and too hard. For 5 years, our conversations had been stilted holiday phone calls and awkward birthday visits. Tyler would sit in my Victorian living room, surrounded by 40 years of academic achievements, looking anywhere but at the family photos that reminded him of what we'd lost. Suddenly, in January, he was bringing me flowers. Daffodils from the Stanford campus florist, my favorite, though I'd never told him that. Helping with groceries I'd been managing perfectly well for 2 years since Harold's death. Asking about my legal protection needs with that concerned expression I'd seen on thousands of students' faces during my career. "Grandma Ellie, you shouldn't be managing all these legal and financial complexities alone," he'd say, settling into the wingback chair that had been his grandfather's favorite spot. The same chair where Harold used to grade papers while I worked on my forensic family law textbooks. Tyler would lean forward with manufactured concern, his voice taking on that honey-sweet tone I'd learned to recognize in manipulative witnesses during my decades of courtroom consulting. "What if something happens and you can't make important decisions? We need to make sure you're legally protected." But Tyler didn't know that I'd spent 4 decades teaching forensic family law investigation at one of the country's most prestigious institutions, that I'd trained prosecutors to recognize systematic exploitation patterns in 12 different countries, that every concerned question about my competency was being cataloged in the same mental filing system I'd used to help convict hundreds of criminals. The filing system that had made my textbook, Forensic Investigation of Family Financial Crimes, required reading in law schools across 3 continents. He also didn't know that I'd been documenting everything since his very first suspicious visit. Every conversation recorded on the digital system I'd installed after Harold's death, not for security, but because 40 years of academic research had taught me that documentation saves lives. Every time his questions shifted from, "How are you feeling, Grandma?" to, "Do you remember where you put those important legal documents?" Every suggestion that I might need professional help managing my affairs. Old habits from 4 decades of academic research die hard. When something doesn't feel right, you investigate systematically. When patterns emerge, you document them with the same precision you'd use for a federal case, and Tyler's pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. The visits started small. Weekly check-ins that felt almost normal if you ignored the way Tyler's eyes would scan my legal documents when he thought I wasn't looking. If you didn't notice how his questions gradually shifted from, "How are you holding up after Grandpa's death?" to, "Do you remember where you put your will and power of attorney papers?" By March, Tyler was bringing his girlfriend Sarah. Perfect Sarah, with her marketing degree from UC Berkeley, and designer clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. 26 years old, professionally charming in that way that sets off every alarm bell I'd developed during 4 decades of dealing with sophisticated criminals. She had the kind of practiced warmth that comes from professional training, not the authentic care of someone who genuinely loves elderly people, but the calculated kindness of someone who's studied how to manipulate them. "Your grandmother is so wise, but these financial and legal decisions are getting too complex for anyone her age," she'd tell Tyler, while helping me organize my daily medications I'd been managing perfectly well since Harold's death. We should really make sure she has proper legal protection. Her hands moved through my personal papers with the systematic efficiency of someone conducting professional intelligence gathering. Not the casual browsing of a curious girlfriend, but the methodical documentation of someone building a comprehensive legal and financial profile. I'd published 12 textbooks on family law investigation, trained over 3,000 prosecutors across 6 countries, helped draft legislation that protected vulnerable adults from financial exploitation in 14 states. My academic credentials filled an entire wall of my home office: Harvard Law School honors degree, Stanford Faculty Achievement Awards, international recognition for contributions to family financial crime prevention. But to Tyler and Sarah, I was just an aging widow who needed legal protection from her own decision-making capacity. What they didn't know was that I'd been documenting their systematic intelligence gathering since Tyler's first suspicious visit in January. Every conversation recorded on the professional-grade digital system I'd installed for my academic research. Every legal document they'd touched, photographed with the chain of custody protocols I'd taught in my evidence documentation seminars. Every question about my banking passwords, my investment accounts, my will, all cataloged with the same systematic precision I'd used to help prosecutors build cases against international criminal networks. The academic research habits of 40 years don't disappear just because you retire. When something doesn't feel right, you investigate with the same methodology you'd use for a federal case. When patterns emerge that match textbook criminal behavior, you document them with courtroom-quality precision. Tyler's Concerned Grandson Act was textbook financial elder abuse. Phase 1. Relationship establishment and trust building. Sarah's helpful girlfriend routine was professional-level manipulation, executed with the kind of training that suggested organized criminal experience. "Grandma, have you thought about what happens if something happens to you?" Sarah asked one afternoon in April, her voice honey-sweet with manufactured concern. We were sitting in my sunroom, surrounded by the climbing roses Harold had planted 30 years ago. The afternoon light was filtering through the antique lace curtains my mother had made, creating the kind of peaceful domestic scene that should have made Sarah's question feel natural. Instead, every instinct I'd developed during 4 decades of criminal investigation was screaming danger. Tyler nodded earnestly, leaning forward in his chair with practiced concern. "We just want to make sure you're protected, Grandma. That all your hard work over the years is safe. What if you get confused about important legal decisions?" The language was wrong, too formal, too rehearsed, like testimony that had been coached by someone with professional legal experience. I played the role perfectly: confused grandmother, overwhelmed by legal complexity, grateful for their help with complicated matters I'd supposedly never encountered before. "Oh, dears, I don't really understand all that legal stuff," I said, letting my voice take on the slightly tremulous quality they expected from a vulnerable elderly woman. But my forensic training was screaming danger signals with every word they spoke. The real shock came when I found Sarah researching conservatorship procedures on my computer, while Tyler distracted me in the kitchen with questions about my medication schedule. Not casual research, not the innocent curiosity of a young woman trying to understand legal protection for elderly people. Professional-level legal intelligence gathering about how to systematically strip legal rights from elderly people through medical documentation and court procedures. Every web page photographed, every legal procedure documented, every requirement for proving incompetency systematically cataloged. This wasn't amateur hour concern by a caring girlfriend. This was expert-level legal surveillance by someone who'd done this many times before. I'd seen this exact pattern in dozens of cases I'd helped prosecute during my academic career. The caring relative or friend who gradually gains access to legal information. The systematic trust building followed by professional-level intelligence gathering about conservatorship procedures, legal elder abuse, executed with textbook precision. But this felt different from the cases I'd studied, more sophisticated, more organized, more professionally coordinated. The kind of systematic operation that suggested international criminal network involvement. What Tyler and Sarah didn't know was that they were targeting the world's leading expert on exactly the crimes they were planning to commit. My textbook, Forensic Investigation of Family Financial Crimes, was required reading in law schools across 3 countries. I'd consulted on cases involving international inheritance theft rings spanning 4 continents. The FBI had flown me to Washington 6 times to help develop protocols for investigating cross-border financial elder abuse networks. Tyler and Sarah thought they were manipulating a confused old woman who'd stumbled into wealth through academic luck and marriage. They had no idea they were targeting one of the world's leading experts on their exact criminal specialty. By May, Tyler was asking about power of attorney with the kind of casual persistence that suggested professional coaching. Sarah was mentioning, almost accidentally, that I might be getting confused about financial decisions, language that appeared in conservatorship petitions I'd seen in dozens of criminal cases. The legal trap was closing around me with systematic precision. But I was documenting every single move they made with the same academic rigor I'd applied to international criminal investigations for 4 decades. And I was beginning to understand that Tyler and Sarah weren't just family members trying to gain legal control over my money. They were part of something much bigger, much more dangerous, and much more deadly than simple conservatorship fraud. The morning I found the actual conservatorship petition hidden in Tyler's backpack changed everything. Legal documents declaring me mentally incompetent. Medical evaluations scheduled with a Dr. Marcus Peterson I'd never heard of. Court dates already set for the following month. They weren't just planning to control my money through legal manipulation. They were planning to strip my legal rights completely through systematic conservatorship fraud. I photographed every document using techniques I'd taught in my evidence documentation seminars at Stanford. Chain of custody protocols. Timestamp verification, multiple angle photography with professional lighting to ensure courtroom admissibility. 40 years of academic training applied to my own family's systematic betrayal. The conservatorship petition claimed I was suffering from progressive dementia and unable to manage complex financial decisions or understand the legal implications of my actions. Medical evidence from Dr. Peterson stating I was a danger to myself and others if allowed to maintain control of substantial inheritance funds. The language was sophisticated, legal terminology used correctly. Professional medical assessments that would hold up in family court proceedings. I'd never met Dr. Peterson in my life, but someone had been building a systematic medical case against my competency for months. The financial investigation I conducted through my academic connections revealed the true scope of their operation. Tyler hadn't inherited $73 million from some mysterious source. He was attempting to gain legal control over my $73 million estate through systematic conservatorship fraud, coordinated by professional criminals. The small transfers I'd noticed in my banking records weren't random theft. They were systematic testing of my financial monitoring capabilities, designed to assess how quickly I noticed unauthorized access. I'd taught an entire semester on digital financial forensics at Stanford. This wasn't amateur-hour legal manipulation by a desperate grandson. This was professional-grade systematic conservatorship fraud, executed with the kind of sophisticated planning and medical documentation that suggested organized criminal involvement. But the real horror was discovering that these weren't Tyler's ideas. The conservatorship petition language was too sophisticated for a 24-year-old with no legal training. The medical documentation was too professional for someone without healthcare system connections. The systematic approach to financial access testing was too methodical for amateur theft. Someone with extensive experience in inheritance theft through conservatorship fraud was coaching my grandson. Someone who'd done this before, many times, with deadly success. I started making social calls to former students who were now working in federal prosecutor offices across the country. Dr. Eleanor Whitfield calling her former prize students for casual academic conversations about interesting elder abuse cases they'd seen lately. Professional curiosity about current trends in systematic financial exploitation through legal manipulation. What they told me during those seemingly innocent conversations made my blood freeze with recognition and terror. Professor Whitfield, we've been tracking an international organization called Heritage Solutions for 3 years. My former student Rachel Martinez told me during what Tyler thought was just a friendly phone call. Rachel was now heading the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit in San Francisco. I'd trained her personally during her law school years, watched her develop into one of the country's most effective prosecutors of international financial crime networks. They target wealthy elderly people across 4 countries through systematic family member recruitment and training. Conservatorship fraud followed by inheritance theft. 47 documented victims. $347 million stolen through legal manipulation. She paused, and I could hear the weight of professional experience and personal horror in her voice. 18 victims were murdered when they discovered the systematic theft or became too dangerous to the network's continued operation. Tyler wasn't just trying to steal from me through conservatorship fraud. He was part of a murder-for-profit organization that systematically eliminated elderly people who figured out their legal manipulation system, and they killed anyone who posed a threat to their international operation. My 40 years of expertise in financial crime investigation made me exactly the kind of target they couldn't afford to leave alive. For the next 48 hours, I thought I could handle this the academic way. Gather systematic evidence through proper legal channels. Contact appropriate authorities through established professional networks. Protect Tyler by exposing his manipulation before the conservatorship hearing. I'd spent 4 decades teaching students how to build cases against organized criminals. Surely I could apply that same systematic methodology to save my own family. I confronted Tyler directly, using every technique I'd developed during 40 years of academic investigation and courtroom consultation. Tyler, we need to talk about this conservatorship petition and Sarah's influence on your decision-making. I showed him the conservatorship papers with the systematic presentation skills I'd used in thousands of lectures. Explained the legal implications using the clear, logical progression that had made my textbooks required reading across 3 countries. I demonstrated how systematically he was being manipulated to participate in criminal conservatorship fraud, using case studies from my own academic research to show him exactly how professional criminals recruit family members for systematic elder abuse. Tyler broke down crying within minutes. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. You're right about Sarah. I think she's been using me this whole time. She convinced me you were getting confused about legal matters and needed protection. If you're watching this alone, maybe share it with someone who understands family betrayal. Trust me, the warning signs are more common than we want to believe." My grandson confessed everything. The gambling debts Sarah had helped him accumulate through systematic financial pressure. The emotional manipulation she'd used to exploit his grief over his parents' death. The systematic way she'd coached him to ask specific questions about my legal competency and document my supposed confusion. Tyler ended his relationship with Sarah that same day. Apologized profusely for participating in the systematic financial intrusions, seemed genuinely horrified by the conservatorship attempt and the realization that he'd been recruited for criminal activity. We had long conversations about his vulnerability to manipulation, his financial struggles, his desperate need for family connection after 5 years of grief-driven isolation. For 2 wonderful days, I thought I'd saved him through academic intervention. Tyler was visiting every day, but now it felt genuine and uncoached. We talked about his parents, his struggles with loss, his plans for rebuilding his life without criminal influence. I helped him understand manipulation techniques, how to recognize predatory behavior, how to protect himself from future systematic exploitation. My grandson was back. The sweet, caring young man I'd known before tragedy and criminal recruitment broke his heart. I canceled the automated recording system I'd set up. Stopped documenting our conversations with academic precision. Began trusting again with the relief of someone who'd successfully applied professional expertise to protect family. The relief was overwhelming. Academic knowledge had saved my family. I was so wrong about everything. Then I found the life insurance policies hidden in Tyler's apartment when I helped him move boxes after his supposed breakup with Sarah. Life insurance policies in Tyler's name. On my life. 5 different companies to avoid detection. Total value, $12 million. All purchased 3 months ago, during the height of Tyler's caring grandson performance and systematic evidence gathering for conservatorship proceedings. While he was building trust and expressing concern about my legal protection needs, he was simultaneously betting $12 million on my death within the year. The applications contained detailed medical information I'd never provided to anyone. Comprehensive health assessments that matched the medical documentation being prepared for conservatorship proceedings. Risk evaluations that painted me as a declining elderly woman. Beneficiary designations that would transfer millions immediately upon my death. All filed during the exact period Tyler was expressing worry about my legal competency and suggesting I needed professional help with important decisions. This wasn't impulsive legal theft by a desperate young man. This was systematic murder planning, executed with professional precision and backup financial instruments. Tyler wasn't the manipulated victim I thought I'd saved through academic intervention. He was a willing and systematic participant in a murder conspiracy. My own grandson had been planning to kill me for money while performing caring concern about my legal protection. The tears, the apologies, the emotional breakthrough where he recognized Sarah's manipulation, all of it had been professional-level performance designed to make me lower my guard before the final phase of their operation. I pulled out my academic research protocols immediately. If Tyler was part of a professional murder network coordinating systematic conservatorship fraud, I needed professional-level evidence that would hold up in federal court proceedings. I reactivated my documentation system with modifications designed for international criminal investigation. Started recording everything again, but now with the systematic precision and legal protocols I'd use for organized crime cases spanning multiple jurisdictions. But the worst betrayal was still coming. Every private conversation I'd been having with Tyler during our emotional reconciliation, every detail I'd shared about recognizing his manipulation, every piece of professional advice I'd given him about protecting himself from criminal recruitment, all of it had been reported back to Heritage Solutions within hours of our conversations. They knew I'd identified their conservatorship operation. They knew I had evidence of systematic theft planning. They knew exactly how dangerous a forensic family law expert could be to their international criminal network. Tyler hadn't been saved by my academic intervention. He'd been using my expertise to help Heritage Solutions plan my elimination more effectively. Dr. Peterson called that afternoon with urgent concern about my declining mental state and recent paranoid delusions about family members attempting systematic financial exploitation. Mrs. Whitfield, your grandson Tyler is very worried about some confusion and paranoid thinking you've been experiencing regarding your family's concern for your legal protection. I'd never spoken to Dr. Peterson in my life. But somehow he had detailed information about my supposed cognitive decline and delusional beliefs about conservatorship fraud. I think we should schedule an immediate psychiatric evaluation for your own safety and the safety of your family, Dr. Peterson continued, his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone who'd provided this exact testimony many times before. Standard conservatorship language. Professional medical manipulation designed to strip legal rights from vulnerable elderly people through systematic psychiatric documentation. But now I understood the real timeline they were working with. I wasn't just being systematically robbed through conservatorship fraud and legally incapacitated through medical manipulation. I was being systematically prepared for elimination within weeks, with insurance policies ready to transfer millions immediately upon my professionally staged death. And Tyler was providing them with detailed intelligence about my capabilities, my suspicions, my evidence gathering, and my professional background in exactly the crimes they were committing. I had maybe 72 hours before Heritage Solutions moved to the final phase of their systematic operation. Time to discover exactly what 40 years of teaching prosecutors how to catch international criminals had prepared me for. Time to find out whether academic expertise could defeat professional killers when family love was the ultimate motivation for survival. Because Tyler's choice to systematically betray me had just activated the most dangerous enemy Heritage Solutions had ever encountered. They thought they were eliminating a confused old woman through legal manipulation. They had no idea they'd just declared war on the world's leading expert in international family financial crime investigation. And I was about to teach them exactly why my textbooks were required reading for prosecutors in 37 countries. For 48 hours, I thought I'd solved the problem through systematic academic intervention. Tyler was visiting every day, but now it felt genuine and uncoached. We talked about his parents, his grief over their sudden death, his plans for rebuilding his life without criminal influence. I helped him understand how he'd been systematically manipulated, how to recognize predatory behavior in future relationships, how to protect himself from organized criminal recruitment. My grandson was back. The sweet, caring young man I'd known before. Tragedy and systematic criminal exploitation broke his heart and destroyed his judgment. I canceled the automated recording system I'd set up for evidence gathering, stopped documenting our conversations with academic precision, began trusting again with the overwhelming relief of someone who'd successfully applied 40 years of professional expertise to protect their family. The relief was overwhelming and completely misguided. For 48 hours, I thought I'd saved my grandson through academic intervention and professional expertise. Tyler apologized for every suspicious financial question, every moment he'd participated in Sarah's systematic intelligence gathering, every time he'd suggested I needed legal protection from my own decision-making capacity. He seemed genuinely horrified by the conservatorship papers, the systematic theft attempts, the professional criminal network that had recruited him. "Grandma, I can't believe I let her use me like that," he said, tears streaming down his face with what appeared to be genuine remorse. "I was just so lost after Mom and Dad died. Sarah made me feel like someone actually cared about what happened to me." We spent hours talking about his grief, his gambling debts that had made him vulnerable to criminal recruitment, his desperate need for family connection after 5 years of emotional isolation. I helped him understand systematic manipulation techniques, taught him to recognize predatory patterns that criminal organizations use to recruit family members for elder abuse. I felt like the protective grandmother I'd always wanted to be, using my professional expertise to save my family from systematic criminal exploitation. Then I found the insurance policies that Tyler had purchased on my life during his supposed transformation and genuine remorse. Life insurance policies in Tyler's name, with me as the insured party. 5 different companies to avoid detection by any single insurance investigation. Total value, $12 million in death benefits. All purchased within the past week, during our honest conversations about his manipulation and systematic criminal recruitment. While Tyler was confessing his participation in conservatorship fraud and expressing genuine remorse for his criminal recruitment, he was simultaneously updating and expanding the insurance policies that would pay him millions for my death. The applications contained detailed medical information I'd never provided, including comprehensive health assessments that matched exactly the psychiatric documentation Dr. Peterson was preparing for accelerated conservatorship proceedings. Risk evaluations that painted me as a declining elderly woman with significant cognitive impairment. Beneficiary designations that would transfer millions immediately upon my death, bypassing any conservatorship proceedings entirely. All filed during the exact period Tyler was confessing his systematic manipulation and begging for my forgiveness. This wasn't impulsive criminal behavior by a remorseful young man seeking redemption. This was systematic murder planning, executed with professional precision, while maintaining an Academy Award-worthy performance of remorse and family reconciliation. Tyler wasn't the reformed victim I thought I'd saved through systematic academic intervention. He was a willing and increasingly sophisticated participant in a murder conspiracy that had simply evolved to use my own professional expertise against me. My own grandson had been planning to kill me for money while performing the most convincing act of remorse and family loyalty I'd ever witnessed. The tears, the apologies, the emotional breakthrough where he recognized his systematic manipulation, all of it had been professional-level performance designed to extract information about my capabilities while preparing for my immediate elimination. I confronted Tyler that evening with the insurance policies spread across my dining room table like evidence in a criminal trial. "Tyler, explain these death benefit policies you purchased this week." For just a moment, his mask slipped completely. The caring, remorseful grandson disappeared entirely, replaced by something cold and calculating that reminded me of every sociopathic criminal I'd studied during my 40-year academic career. Then he recovered with the professional skill of someone who'd been extensively trained in systematic deception, and the performance resumed seamlessly. "Grandma, Sarah told me those were just financial planning documents to protect you if something happened. I didn't understand what they really meant. I was just trying to make sure you were covered. But I'd spent 40 years studying criminal psychology and systematic deception techniques." Tyler's micro-expressions during that moment of mask failure, his recovery time, his choice of deflection language, everything screamed professional coaching by experts in systematic manipulation. This wasn't confused grief or misguided family concern. This was trained deception executed by someone who'd been systematically prepared for exactly this confrontation. "Tyler, who coached you to provide that specific response?" I asked, using the systematic interrogation techniques I'd taught to thousands of prosecutors over 4 decades. His eyes flickered involuntarily toward his phone, muscle memory from months of reporting back to criminal handlers after every conversation. "I need to make a call," he said, abandoning any pretense of genuine family reconciliation. "To Sarah? To Heritage Solutions? Or directly to the professional killers they've already activated?" Tyler froze completely. He hadn't expected me to know the organization's name or understand the systematic nature of their murder-for-profit operation. "Grandma, you don't understand what you're dealing with," Tyler said, and for the first time in months, his voice carried genuine concern rather than professional manipulation. "These people, if you know about Heritage Solutions and their systematic operation, they'll kill both of us immediately." Now I was finally getting somewhere. Real fear, real urgency, the kind of genuine terror that comes from understanding exactly how dangerous your criminal employers can be when their systematic operation is threatened. "Tell me about them, Tyler. Tell me exactly how they recruited you and what they've instructed you to do." For the next hour, Tyler told me everything about Heritage Solutions' systematic recruitment and training operation. How Sarah had found him through a dating app specifically designed to target vulnerable young men with wealthy elderly relatives. How they'd spent months profiling his gambling addiction, his grief vulnerabilities, his financial desperation, his need for emotional connection. How Heritage Solutions had spent an entire year training him to exploit family relationships for systematic inheritance theft through conservatorship fraud. "But they told me no one would actually get hurt," Tyler insisted with desperate conviction. "Just systematic financial manipulation and legal control until natural causes took their course." "Tyler, Heritage Solutions has murdered 18 people in the past 3 years. I know this because I've been consulting with the FBI's International Financial Crimes Unit about their systematic operation for months." My grandson's face went completely white with shock and recognition. "You... what?" "I'm Dr. Eleanor Whitfield. I literally wrote the definitive textbook on international family financial crimes and systematic elder abuse through legal manipulation. Heritage Solutions has been systematically targeting the one person in America who's spent 40 years learning how to identify, investigate, and destroy organizations exactly like them." Tyler started shaking with genuine terror as he finally understood the scope of what Heritage Solutions had accomplished through their systematic targeting decision. "Grandma, if they find out you know who you really are professionally, if they realize they've been targeting an international expert in exactly their criminal specialty, they'll try to eliminate us both immediately rather than risk exposure of their systematic operation. Yes, Tyler. That's exactly what happens when professional criminal organizations systematically target law enforcement experts without conducting proper background research. I could see him calculating odds, weighing survival options, trying to figure out how to survive what he'd gotten us both into through his systematic participation in their operation. There's something else, Tyler whispered with genuine terror. They're not planning to wait for conservatorship proceedings or natural causes. The systematic timeline got moved up to immediate action. What timeline, Tyler? Your elimination. It's supposed to happen this week through systematic staging. My blood went cold with professional recognition of systematic murder planning. How exactly? Stage suicide. They've been planning it for months while building conservatorship documentation. Dr. Peterson has been systematically building medical documentation that you're depressed and suicidal due to cognitive decline. Tyler was crying now, but these felt like genuine tears rather than professional performance. Grandma, I thought it was just systematic money manipulation. I didn't know they were planning to actually murder me. You can say it, Tyler. Heritage Solutions systematically recruited you to help them murder your grandmother for $73 million through staged suicide after failed conservatorship fraud. He nodded, unable to speak through genuine remorse and terror. Tyler, here's what's going to happen. You're going to help me systematically destroy Heritage Solutions' entire international operation. Or you're going to federal prison as an accessory to attempted murder and systematic elder abuse. But if I help you, they'll systematically eliminate me for betraying their operation. If you don't help me, the FBI will arrest you for conspiracy to commit murder and systematic participation in international elder abuse. Your choice is systematic cooperation or systematic prosecution. Tyler looked at me with something that might have been genuine respect for the first time in years, mixed with terror about systematic criminal consequences. You really are as professionally dangerous as Dad always said you were. Tyler, your father never saw me systematically prosecute international criminals or destroy organized crime networks. You're about to find out exactly what 40 years of academic expertise in criminal investigation looks like when someone systematically threatens my family. My grandson was finally beginning to understand who his grandmother really was professionally. And Heritage Solutions was about to learn why my textbooks on systematic criminal investigation were required reading for prosecutors in 37 countries. But first, we need to make Heritage Solutions think their systematic plan is working perfectly. What do you mean, Grandma? You're going to keep reporting back to them, Tyler. But now you're going to be systematically reporting exactly what I want them to hear. Tyler's eyes widened as he realized the scope of systematic deception I was proposing. Grandma, you want me to be a systematic double agent against international killers? I want you to help me set the systematic trap that's going to destroy their entire international murder-for-profit operation forever. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was systematically playing the game instead of being systematically played by professional criminals. Heritage Solutions thought they'd systematically recruited Tyler to help them murder a confused old woman through staged suicide and conservatorship fraud. They had no idea they'd just handed me the perfect systematic weapon to destroy their entire international operation. The Heritage Solutions network was more sophisticated than anything I'd encountered in 40 years of academic research into international criminal organizations. My former student, Rachel Martinez, sent me classified FBI files under the guise of consulting on an interesting case that matches your academic expertise. What I read made my decades of textbook knowledge seem elementary compared to their systematic operational sophistication. 47 victims across 4 countries. Average age, 68. Average stolen amount, $7.4 million through systematic conservatorship fraud, followed by staged elimination. But the systematic planning methodology was what terrified me most. 2-year infiltration timelines, professional psychological profiling of both targets and recruited family members, medical and legal network corruption spanning multiple nations with systematic documentation procedures. When I realized they were planning to systematically eliminate me within 72 hours, I understood why 18 victims had been murdered rather than allowed to live after discovering the systematic theft. Anyone smart enough to recognize their systematic pattern became too dangerous to leave alive, regardless of their age or apparent vulnerability. Sarah Chen wasn't Tyler's girlfriend recruited through random dating app algorithms. She was a systematic recruitment specialist whose professional job was identifying vulnerable young men with wealthy elderly relatives, then systematically destroying those family relationships from the inside through professional manipulation techniques. Tyler's gambling debts, his grief vulnerability after his parents' death, his financial desperation, his need for family connection, all had been systematically documented and assessed before Sarah accidentally met him through targeted dating app algorithms designed specifically for inheritance theft recruitment. But Tyler had made one critical systematic error when Heritage Solutions chose me as their systematic target. He'd forgotten that his grandmother was Dr. Eleanor Whitfield, the same expert whose systematic investigation textbooks were used to train prosecutors in 37 countries. The same consultant who'd helped develop international protocols for investigating systematic cross-border financial crime networks, exactly like Heritage Solutions. Heritage Solutions had systematically researched my wealth and financial assets with professional thoroughness. They'd identified my apparent vulnerability as a grieving widow through systematic surveillance and intelligence gathering. But they'd completely missed my professional expertise in systematic investigation of exactly the crimes they were planning to commit against me. The Confused Grandmother Act was about to become the systematic performance that destroyed their entire international operation. While Tyler thought I was having systematic memory problems about legal and financial matters, I was actually systematically documenting a federal case using techniques I'd taught for decades. While Sarah thought I was overwhelmed by conservatorship procedures and legal complexity, I was systematically applying forensic accounting methods to trace their international money laundering network across multiple jurisdictions. While Dr. Peterson thought I was systematically declining cognitively, I was systematically building evidence that would dismantle their organized murder operation across 4 countries. My former students weren't just casual social contacts from my academic career. They were federal prosecutors, FBI financial crimes specialists, international law enforcement coordinators who'd been systematically building cases against Heritage Solutions for 3 years, and they'd been systematically waiting for the perfect opportunity to destroy the network completely. That's when Heritage Solutions made their fatal systematic mistake. Sarah's background research had finally uncovered my true professional identity and systematic expertise. Dr. Eleanor Whitfield wasn't just a wealthy, systematic target for conservatorship fraud. I was the leading international expert on systematic investigation of exactly the crimes they'd been committing for years. The network immediately put out a systematic contract on my life. Professional killers with international murder experience and systematic elimination expertise. Immediate execution timeline with no consideration for conservatorship fraud procedures. Tyler was given an ultimatum: systematically cooperate with my murder within 24 hours, or die alongside me through systematic elimination. "Grandma, they're sending systematic elimination specialists tonight," Tyler whispered during our family reconciliation conversation, knowing Heritage Solutions was systematically monitoring everything we said through professional surveillance equipment. But what they didn't know was that Tyler was now wearing FBI recording equipment, courtesy of my former student David Chen, who was systematically coordinating the international takedown operation across multiple law enforcement agencies. "Tyler, tell me exactly what systematic instructions they've given you for my elimination," I said, speaking directly to the federal agents who were systematically monitoring our conversation for evidence gathering. "Systematically drug your evening tea with the sedatives Dr. Peterson provided. Make it look like dementia-driven despair and systematic suicide. Forge a suicide note using samples of your handwriting they've been systematically collecting for months. If this resonates with your experience protecting family, you're not alone. Share this with someone who understands that protective instincts don't have an expiration date. The systematic murder was scheduled for that very evening. Professional execution disguised as elderly suicide through systematic staging. But Heritage Solutions had no idea they were systematically walking into a federal trap that had taken 3 years of systematic preparation to perfect. And if I refuse to systematically help them with your elimination? Tyler asked, his voice shaking with genuine terror about systematic consequences. Professional killers systematically eliminate both of us and stage a murder-suicide. Grandson kills grandmother for inheritance, then kills himself from guilt and systematic remorse. Tyler was finally understanding the real systematic stakes. Heritage Solutions didn't leave witnesses alive. Ever. Systematic elimination was their standard operating procedure. But Tyler, there's something Heritage Solutions doesn't know about your grandmother's systematic capabilities, I said, looking directly into the hidden cameras they'd systematically planted throughout my house. I've spent 40 years systematically teaching people exactly how to catch international murder networks, and I've been systematically documenting everything since your first suspicious visit. Tyler's expression shifted to something that looked like systematic pride in his grandmother's professional capabilities. Every conversation with Sarah was systematically recorded using FBI-grade equipment. Every financial transaction was systematically traced through international banking protocols. Every member of their network was systematically identified through cross-reference analysis. Tyler was staring at me with newfound systematic respect. Grandma, how long have you been systematically building this case? I suspected systematic financial exploitation after your third visit. I confirmed systematic international organized crime involvement after finding the conservatorship papers. I've been systematically coordinating with federal law enforcement across 4 countries for 2 months, Tyler. Heritage Solutions thinks they're systematically killing a confused old woman tonight. What are they really systematically walking into? The largest systematic international financial crimes arrest in FBI history. Tyler looked at his grandmother, really looked at her systematic professional competence for the first time in years. Dad always said you were the most systematically intelligent person he'd ever met. I never understood what he meant until right now. Your father saw me grade papers and attend faculty meetings, Tyler. You're about to see what 40 years of systematically prosecuting international criminals looks like when someone systematically threatens my family. But first, we had to systematically survive the next 6 hours. Professional killers were already systematically positioned. The murder timeline was systematically set, and Sarah Chen was about to discover that her perfect systematic victim was actually her worst systematic nightmare. Tyler, here's what's going to happen systematically. You're going to follow their instructions exactly. Systematically drug the tea. Wait for me to drink it. Prepare to systematically stage my suicide. But Grandma, what Heritage Solutions doesn't know is that I systematically switched the drugs, and that every federal agent in Northern California is systematically positioned around this house. Tyler's eyes widened as he understood the systematic scope of the operation. When Sarah arrived tonight to systematically confirm my death, she would walk directly into the systematic trap that would destroy Heritage Solutions forever. 18 simultaneous systematic arrests across 4 countries. $347 million in stolen assets systematically recovered. 23 elderly victims still alive, systematically saved from planned murders. But Heritage Solutions still had one final systematic card to play. Professional killers were already systematically inside my house with orders to systematically eliminate everyone who could testify against the network. Including Tyler. Including me. And they had no idea that their next systematic target had spent 4 decades systematically teaching people exactly how to stop international murder organizations. That's when my grandson would truly understand what it meant to have Dr. Eleanor Whitfield as his grandmother. Not just the woman who'd systematically taught thousands of prosecutors. The woman who was about to systematically destroy the most sophisticated inheritance theft network in international criminal history. Tyler came to my house Tuesday morning with tears in his eyes and FBI recording equipment systematically hidden under his shirt. Not Heritage Solutions surveillance equipment. Federal wire systematically coordinated by my former student David Chen, now FBI Financial Crimes Lead Coordinator for International Operations. "Grandma," Tyler whispered, knowing Heritage Solutions was systematically monitoring our conversation. "They're going to systematically kill both of us if I don't help them stage your suicide tonight." The network had given explicit systematic instructions. Drug my evening tea with professional sedatives. Make it look like dementia-driven despair and systematic suicide. Forge a suicide note using handwriting samples they'd been systematically collecting for months. If he refused systematic cooperation, professional killers would systematically eliminate both of us and stage a murder-suicide scenario. But Tyler had finally understood who his grandmother really was professionally. Dr. Eleanor Whitfield, the woman who'd spent 40 years systematically teaching people to catch international criminals. The woman who'd been systematically building a federal case against Heritage Solutions since discovering their conservatorship fraud operation. "My former students have been systematically building a federal case for months," I told him, speaking to both Tyler and the FBI agents monitoring our conversation. Every conversation with Sarah was systematically recorded. Every financial transaction was systematically traced. Every member of their international network was systematically identified. Tyler's face showed relief, terror, and something that looked like systematic pride in his grandmother's professional capabilities. I'd been systematically coordinating with FBI financial crimes units across 4 countries. Heritage Solutions thought they were systematically killing a confused old woman through staged suicide. They were systematically walking into a federal trap that had taken 3 years to perfect through international cooperation. "But first, I have to systematically survive the next 24 hours, I said with professional determination. Professional killers were already systematically positioned. The murder timeline was systematically set. And Sarah Chen was about to discover that her perfect systematic victim was actually her worst systematic nightmare. "Grandma, what do I systematically do?" Tyler asked with genuine desperation. I looked at my grandson, systematically manipulated, terrified, but finally choosing family over criminals, and gave him the same systematic advice I'd given thousands of students. "We follow the evidence systematically, we apply the law precisely, and we make sure justice is systematically served." Tyler would systematically wear the wire, follow Heritage Solutions instructions exactly, systematically drug the tea, wait for me to drink it, prepare to systematically stage my suicide. What they didn't know was that I'd systematically switched the drugs with harmless sedatives hours earlier. Sarah's perfect systematic plan had one fatal flaw. She'd assumed her target was a typical elderly victim, isolated, confused, easily systematically eliminated. She had no idea she was systematically targeting the world's leading expert on international family financial crimes. While Heritage Solutions systematically planned my murder, I'd been systematically planning their complete destruction. Every member of their international network, every victim they'd systematically robbed, every murder they'd systematically committed. 40 years of academic expertise systematically applied to criminal justice. The systematic trap was set perfectly, but they still had to systematically take the bait. That evening, Tyler systematically followed Sarah's instructions exactly. He brought me systematically drugged tea. He waited for me to systematically drink it. He prepared to systematically stage my suicide. What Sarah didn't know was that I'd systematically switched the cups, and that every federal agent in Northern California was systematically positioned around my house. When Sarah arrived to systematically confirm my death, She walked directly into the largest systematic international financial crimes arrest in FBI history. 18 simultaneous systematic arrests across 4 countries. $347 million in stolen assets systematically recovered. 23 elderly victims still alive, systematically saved from planned murders. But Sarah Chen still had one final systematic card to play. Professional killers were already systematically inside my house with orders to systematically eliminate everyone who could testify against Heritage Solutions, including Tyler, including me. That's when my grandson truly understood what 40 years of systematically teaching criminal law had prepared me for. Not just systematically catching criminals, systematically stopping them permanently. When the international killers systematically kicked down my bedroom door, they found Tyler and me sitting calmly at my chess table. "Sarah Chen is in federal custody," I said without looking up from the board. "Heritage Solutions is systematically finished. Your employer is systematically gone." The lead killer, Marcus Volkov, wanted for murders in 7 countries, raised his weapon with systematic precision. "You're both systematically dead anyway, old woman." That's when Tyler finally understood what his grandmother had been systematically teaching for 40 years. "Mr. Volkov," I said calmly, "this conversation is being systematically broadcast live to FBI agents positioned throughout this house. Your voice print is being systematically recorded for international war crimes tribunals." The killers hesitated with systematic recognition. Professional criminals understand when they've systematically walked into a trap. "You can systematically kill us, but you'll be in federal custody within minutes. Or you can systematically surrender now and potentially avoid the death penalty for your previous murders." 20 seconds of systematic silence. Then Marcus Volkov slowly lowered his weapon with systematic recognition of defeat. The international killers systematically surrendered to FBI agents. Sarah Chen's entire network was systematically dismantled. Dr. Peterson's fake medical practice was systematically exposed. Heritage Solutions' murder-for-profit operation was systematically and permanently destroyed. But the real victory was Tyler systematically choosing family over criminals. My grandson had learned that love isn't something to be systematically manipulated. It's something to be systematically protected. And sometimes, your grandmother's 40 years of systematic expertise is exactly what you need to survive international killers. The Heritage Solutions systematic takedown made international headlines across 4 countries. 47 victims systematically identified across multiple jurisdictions. $347 million systematically recovered through coordinated law enforcement. An international murder-for-profit network systematically and permanently dismantled. But the real systematic satisfaction came when Tyler finally understood what family protection actually meant through systematic education. Sarah Chen was systematically extradited to face murder charges in 4 countries. The systematic inheritance theft operation she'd coordinated for 3 years was completely exposed through federal investigation. Dr. Peterson systematically lost his medical license and faced federal fraud charges. The fake psychiatric evaluations that had systematically stripped legal rights from dozens of elderly victims were ruled inadmissible across multiple jurisdictions. But the most important systematic victory was Tyler's transformation from victim to protector. "Grandma," he told me during the FBI debriefing with systematic honesty, "I thought love meant getting what you needed from people who cared about you. Now I understand that love means systematically protecting people who trust you." My grandson systematically testified in federal court against every member of Heritage Solutions. His testimony helped systematically convict 23 international criminals and saved the lives of elderly victims across 4 countries. Tyler had learned that family isn't something to systematically exploit. It's something to systematically defend. The federal government asked me to systematically consult on new legislation protecting elderly Americans from international financial crimes. My textbooks now include a systematic chapter on Heritage Solutions-style inheritance theft. Law schools across 3 countries systematically teach courses based on our case. Stanford University systematically established the Whitfield Center for Elder Protection, using techniques I'd developed during the Heritage Solutions investigation. My 40 years of academic expertise had evolved into a systematic approach to protecting vulnerable adults from international criminal networks. But the greatest systematic satisfaction was earning Tyler's genuine respect. Not as his vulnerable grandmother, but as his systematic teacher, his systematic protector, his family. Tyler now systematically works with federal law enforcement, helping identify young people being recruited by inheritance theft networks. His experience makes him uniquely qualified to systematically recognize manipulation patterns and to systematically help other families avoid the trap we'd almost fallen into. 6 months later, Tyler and I received a systematic letter from Maria Santos, an elderly woman in Barcelona whose grandson had been recruited by a Heritage Solutions copycat organization. "Dr. Whitfield," she wrote, "your systematic textbook helped my local police recognize the pattern. My grandson is safe, and the criminals are systematically in custody." We'd systematically saved more than just our own family. The systematic approach I'd developed was protecting elderly people across multiple countries. Tyler systematically framed that letter and hung it in his apartment. "Proof that Grandma's systematic expertise saves lives," he told his friends with systematic pride. "Share this with anyone who's ever been underestimated because of their age. Your life experience and professional wisdom are weapons they never see coming." The Heritage Solutions Network is systematically and permanently destroyed. Their international murder-for-profit operation is systematically finished, and elderly people across 4 countries are safer because one grandmother systematically refused to be a victim. But the most important lesson Tyler learned, systematically, changed everything about how he sees relationships. Family love isn't weakness to be systematically exploited. It's strength to be systematically protected. Tyler keeps the insurance policies Heritage Solutions had purchased on my life in a frame on his desk, not as a reminder of his systematic betrayal, but as proof of how far he'd traveled from victim to systematic protector. "Those policies represent the worst systematic version of myself," he explains to other young people caught in inheritance theft schemes. "But they also represent the moment I chose family over systematic criminals." My grandson had learned that professional expertise never systematically expires. That accumulated life experience provides power criminals systematically underestimate, and that your grandmother's 40 years of systematic teaching prosecutors might be exactly what you need to survive international killers. The academic recognition was systematically gratifying. The legislative impact was systematically important. The international law enforcement collaboration was professionally satisfying. But the real systematic victory was simple: Tyler choosing to systematically protect his family instead of exploiting it. Heritage Solutions had systematically recruited Tyler to help them murder his grandmother for $73 million. Instead, they'd accidentally created the perfect systematic team to destroy their entire international criminal network. A forensic family law expert with 40 years of systematic experience, and a grandson who'd learned that love means systematic protection, not systematic manipulation. Together, we'd proven that family bonds strengthened by crisis are systematically stronger than any criminal organization. That professional expertise combined with protective love creates an unstoppable systematic force. And that sometimes, the most dangerous enemy international criminals can face is a grandmother who systematically refuses to be a victim. Tyler still visits every Tuesday for systematic consultation. But now our conversations are about systematically protecting other families, sharing our experience, and using our hard-won wisdom to systematically prevent future victims. My grandson had finally learned the most important lesson I could systematically teach him. Your inner wisdom systematically matters. Your family's love is systematically sacred, and your life experience gives you power that criminals systematically never expect. Tyler and I still play chess every Tuesday afternoon with systematic dedication, but now our conversations are systematically different. He asks about my academic work not to systematically exploit it, but to learn from it. He seeks my wisdom not to systematically manipulate it, but to honor it. The federal government systematically invited me to testify before Congress about international inheritance theft networks. My recommendations became the systematic foundation for the Elder Protection Act, signed into law 6 months after Heritage Solutions' destruction. The hardest lesson Tyler learned systematically changed everything about how he sees family relationships. "Grandma," he told me last week with systematic honesty, "I used to think smart people were the ones who could systematically manipulate others into giving them what they wanted. Now I understand that wisdom means systematically using your knowledge to protect people who trust you." My 40 years of systematic teaching had prepared me to catch criminals, but my love for Tyler had prepared me to systematically save him from Heritage Solutions, from professional killers, and from becoming the kind of person who systematically exploits family love for money. Your inner wisdom systematically matters more than you realize. Your professional expertise never systematically expires, regardless of your age. Your life experience gives you power that criminals systematically and consistently underestimate. And your family's love is the strongest systematic weapon you have against people who try to exploit your kindness. Tyler learned that family love isn't systematic weakness. It's systematic strength. He discovered that professional competence doesn't systematically disappear at retirement. It becomes refined through decades of systematic experience. Most importantly, he understood that protective instincts aren't something to be systematically ashamed of. They're something to be systematically trusted. The Elder Protection Center we systematically established has prevented 43 inheritance theft attempts in the past year. Young people recruited by criminal networks are systematically identified and redirected before they can harm their families. Tyler leads our systematic family reconciliation program, helping repair relationships damaged by criminal manipulation. "The most important thing my grandmother systematically taught me," Tyler tells audiences of law enforcement professionals, "is that love means systematic protection, not systematic exploitation. And that your family's accumulated wisdom is systematically more powerful than any criminal organization." Heritage Solutions systematically targeted what they thought was a vulnerable elderly woman. Instead, they encountered 40 years of prosecutorial expertise combined with a grandmother's systematic protective fury. They systematically recruited what they thought was a desperate young man. Instead, they created their own systematic destruction by underestimating family loyalty. What's the hardest lesson you've learned about people trying to take advantage of your kindness? Your inner wisdom has been protecting you longer than you realize. Share your story below. Real recognize real, and your experience might save someone else the pain I almost endured. The international criminal network that had systematically killed 18 people and stolen hundreds of millions of dollars was destroyed by a retired professor and her grandson. Not through violence or intimidation, but through systematic application of professional knowledge and unwavering family protection. Tyler keeps his Heritage Solutions recruitment materials in a file labeled "Never Again," not as systematic shame, but as reminder of how far he's systematically traveled. "Those documents represent the person I never want to systematically be again," he explains to young people facing similar manipulation. But they also prove that family love can systematically overcome any criminal influence. My academic legacy continues through the textbooks, the legislation, the Elder Protection Center. But my personal legacy lives in Tyler's systematic transformation from victim to protector. Every Tuesday, we systematically review new cases together. Inheritance theft attempts, elder abuse schemes, family manipulation networks. Tyler systematically applies the pattern recognition I taught him. I provide the legal framework he needs. Together, we systematically protect families from experiencing what we survived. The greatest systematic victory wasn't destroying Heritage Solutions. It was proving that family bonds strengthened through crisis become systematically unbreakable. That professional expertise combined with protective love creates systematically unstoppable force. Tyler still asks about my chess strategy every week with systematic dedication. But now he's learning to think 10 moves ahead not for personal gain, but for systematic family protection. "Grandma," he said yesterday with systematic understanding, "you taught me that the most important game isn't about winning. It's about systematically making sure the people you love are safe. Your inner wisdom has been systematically protecting you longer than you know. Your professional experience provides power that never systematically expires. Your protective instincts are systematic weapons criminals never see coming. And your family's love, when properly protected, is systematically stronger than any criminal organization in the world." Tyler learned that love means systematic protection, not systematic exploitation. I learned that 40 years of academic expertise becomes most powerful when systematically applied to protecting family. And together, we learned that the strongest systematic force in the world isn't criminal organization or international conspiracy. It's a grandmother and grandson who systematically refuse to let anyone destroy their family. Sometimes, your grandmother's 40 years of systematic expertise is exactly what you need to survive international killers. And sometimes, your grandson's love is exactly what you need to remember why that systematic expertise matters. Heritage Solutions learned too late that family love protected by systematic professional wisdom is the most dangerous enemy any criminal network can face.